Pedro Grifol has not been fired yet, and losing 17 games in a row probably is not going to be the tipping point. But a tweet from an ESPN insider is suggesting maybe it is time to let him go. Let's discuss that, and also if this losing streak is something we should have sympathy for toward the manager next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the White Sox losing streak has hit 17 games after the Sox got swept by the Kansas City Royals. They lost 10-3 in the finale, and rookie Drew Thorpe was not that sharp. Time to panic, maybe more just like going through the rookie development process. But the main thing to come out of this game is a tweet from ESPN's Jesse Rogers that indicates that there are some rumblings about Pedro's job status. Now, it did not come across as an insider report, more just an observation. But in the first segment, I do want to discuss the recent report of him further alienating the clubhouse, a terrible perspective he has regarding the team's current state. Does he deserve some sympathy? Then, after all the trades, I want to discuss what the ideal everyday starting lineup should look like, not the batting order, but who should be the starters in the field and the DH going forward. And then finally, let's give thanks that July is over, but we should discuss how bad it went. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, it's not been a good week for Pedro Grifol. And I'll get to all the details in a second, but honestly, with how he literally says he is good at his job and with that defiant tone, I can't feel bad for this guy. It sounds like he's a good man, but he is a terrible communicator, and he comes across as arrogant and someone who gets mad at you if you say, hey, stop peeing on my leg and telling me it's raining, because that's exactly what he's doing. Now, if he has not been fired after a 3-22 start, the first 14-game losing streak that happened this season, the starting to fracture the clubhouse with his misguided criticism of the team after Kyle Bradish nearly no-hit the Sox, I doubt this 17-game losing streak and counting will get him fired. But the main point I want to make is this man, who has held countless other players accountable, now granted either it's been awkwardly done or just too late, gets to be the judge, jury, and executioner when he is terrible at his job and he still has not been held accountable. That's why I cannot have sympathy for the devil. And I'm not saying he's exactly the devil. I was just using a Rolling Stones term there. When I discuss some of the recent issues and this one comment he made, you may start to wonder if he's even qualified to be a roving instructor. And I'm not questioning the man's character. I am questioning if he actually understands what is going on here, and that is not acceptable to put a positive spin on this. If the team was, say, 20 games under 500, fine. You can try to peddle sunshine and rainbows. But this team is 27-84, three losses away from being 60 games under 500. You can't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining in that situation. I'm just sorry. And please just don't even pee on my leg in general. But this guy is just straight up lying to us. And I'll get to it in a second. But first, let's get to the latest report on how he has alienated the clubhouse. 670 The Score, Shane Reardon tweeted this out, and it was discussed on the show. He is the executive producer for Parkins and Spiegel. This is on X, formerly Twitter, at Shane_Reardon. Report. The hashtag White Sox clubhouse is fractured. The first game back from All-Star break, manager Pedro Grifol told his team, paraphrasing, that if this goes down as one of the worst seasons ever, it's absolutely no one but the players, end quote. Also, running and BP have been mandated. Now, Shane did put on X later. Pedro Grifol is a really good man. He gave me an hour-long one-on-one when he first got to town. People close to the situation echo that. Said one person, quote, "It's been really tough. Pedro's a good guy, just not the man for the job, end quote. Now, the Chicago Sun-Times' Daryl Van Schouwen also had this in one of his latest pieces as he followed up on Shane's report. This is what it reads. So it goes for Grifol, who earlier was asked about a team meeting he held in Kansas City before the first game after the All-Star break. One that was received with some pushback from veteran players especially. It took some air out of the clubhouse, sources said, after the Sox, bogged down by a 27-71 record at the time, returned rested and somewhat refreshed after a needed break. Players had mixed reactions to being given mandatory pregame work and less of an optional variety going forward from Grifol that day. Quote, I know how to get ready for a game, end quote, one player told the Sun-Times when asked about Grifol's requirements. The player said he understood Grifol's intent to maintain a strong work ethic on a team suffering through what could be the worst season in Major League history. Quote, what response could you possibly have, end quote, Grifol said Tuesday. Quote, we've lost 83 games. We're talking about work and work ethic. We're talking about work to improve ourselves as individuals and improve ourselves for a team. For me, it wasn't a big deal, end quote. Grifol told the players in a meeting that they would have the, quote, ultimate control, end quote, of the record, and reminded them that it would always be associated with them, but denied saying it would fully so on them, with which a clubhouse source supported. Okay. I could see, though, how some players took that as him saying the historic losing would fall on them and them alone, and he has no blame. First, Pedro isn't out there making the errors and not scoring the runs. So I get that perspective. But he is making terrible in-game decisions. The team still doesn't even play the fundamentally sound way he preached at spring training. You know, he had that acronym for FAST. They don't play fast. They don't even play fast non-acronym. And well, he has shown time and time again, he is bad at his job with his communication and decision-making. Second, the guy literally said the team looked flat and then doubled down after nearly getting no hit by Kyle Bradish in June, if I recall. You know, an ace pitcher up until going on the IL for the Orioles, he was dealing that day. The players said it, baseball greats said it, but not Pedro. He said the team was flat and then doubled down. So maybe having a message that he thinks is well-intentioned, but, he might have been well-intentioned, but when he speaks, it either misses the mark rationally or misses the mark on how it's delivered. Now on to the statement that should just have you absolutely furious. Quote, of course I want to be here. This is what I've dreamed of all my life. This is what I have a passion for. This is what I think I'm good at. Whether the record displays it or not, I think we're in a better spot than what people think we are, even if it's hard to see, end quote. And that grabbed from Daryl Van Schouwen's write-up. It's hard to see because it does not exist. You are not in a better spot when your bullpen blows leads. Your offense usually scores no more than 3 runs. Your defense can't catch the ball. I mean, it looked like a clown show out there yesterday. And your team can't run the bases. Lately, no one outside of Jonathan Cannon seems to be getting better. Everyone seems to be playing worse. Everyone has that look of, we're going to lose this game. And yet, Pedro thinks they're in a better spot than what people think they are. That's delusional thinking. Now, on to sympathy for Pedro. From the 108.com's Beef Loaf, he tweeted this out at Mr. Delicious13. I was number 1 on the Pedro Grifol hater list way back in November 2022. But I'm going to be honest. I feel a little bad for him right now. No manager should have to go through this. And he has a great post on from the 108.com about the replies of no one feeling bad for the man. I mean, there's some excellent responses. And I don't feel bad for him either because of statements he made earlier. He is defiant. He is way too confident for his record. And he gives off that Lieutenant Dyke vibes from Band of Brothers. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch Band of Brothers. Especially episode 6 and 7, where they're poorly led by this Lieutenant Dyke who seizes up in a major battle. That's Pedro. Now, the firing speculation has been raised, and it's been raised because today would be a good day to do it because the White Sox are off. This is what Jesse Rogers had at Jesse Rogers ESPN. The White Sox get swept by the Royals It's their 17th consecutive loss. They are 3-22 in July. That's tied for the second fewest wins in any month by any team in the last 100 years, minimum 20 games. Lots of rumblings about Pedro Grifol's job status here at the park. And then John Greenberg of The Athletic, at John_Greenberg, he tweeted this out. With an off day tomorrow, I think the White Sox have to fire Pedro Grifol right now. They're beyond embarrassing, and for his sake, I just can't imagine Grifol having to answer questions the last 2 months. All right. But the thing is, he's admitted he wants to keep doing this job, and he's admitted he thinks he's good at it. I can't give him grace here. He keeps making things worse by his own doing. And he does it with casual acceptance. A well-run organization would have fired him months ago. An even decently run organization would have fired him today and put Charlie Montoya in as the interim. But the Sox are beyond poorly run. And that's why Pedro still has a job that he's clearly bad at. But he thinks he is. He's just like his mentor, Ned Yost. I covered Ned Yost. He was another manager who was bad at his job, defiant, hated when people questioned him, and the only reason why he won a World Series was because that Kansas City Royals team was so good that not even his terrible leadership could get in the way. Well, the trade deadline has come and gone. Some holes are now in the lineup. Because of them, let's discuss who the regulars should be going forward next on Locked On White Sox. Hey, when I'm at the ballpark, I love getting a hot dog and chasing it down with an ice cold pop. My daughter and wife love getting that ice cream of the future as well. That is the only way I can get them to go to a game, honestly. But sometimes they still get thirsty. And next time I'm going to suggest Liquid IV. When taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. I'm getting ready to go to Florida in a few days. It's going to be humid, and you best believe I'm going to be packing some Liquid IV to stay hydrated, especially since I can get hydrated faster than, say, buying one of those expensive sports drinks at Disney. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Tear, pour, live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using code MLB at liquidiv.com. And get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Share a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you canvas analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, the White Sox can't lose today as they're off, but they'll be back in action tomorrow to start a 3-game road series with the Minnesota Twins. First pitch tomorrow is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there like Future Sox. And thank you again to Elijah Evans for joining me yesterday to talk about all the prospects the Sox got in the trade deadline. But I just always ask, make me your first listen. Well, the newest everyday lineup I'm proposing, and it's not the batting order because I don't have all the matchup data that the front office has that can give to the manager and they can make the lineup card. It's not going to lead to many wins, but it should allow a peek into some of these players that can be part of the 2025 team. And that is what the focus should be the rest of the season, is getting an evaluation for the 2025 season. Now, I wrote about this on SouthsideShowdown.com, but I want to discuss, again, who should be basically the regulars every day going forward for the next 2 months. At catcher, Corey Lee. He's proven this season he can at least reach his floor of being a good backup catcher. He's got some pop. Definitely really good defensively with his ability to pop out and throw out runners. He's giving off those Ron Karkovice vibes, although I think he could probably hit a little, his average could be a little bit better than Ron Karkovice. I remember Officer Karkovice back in the 90s, like his averages were usually like 190, 200, but he could just crush home runs when he got a hold of one. And I know Edgar Caro is hitting well in the minors, and he's likely the long-term starter, but it sounds like, again, the Sox want to try to give him a full shot at winning Rookie of the Year. So I don't know if we're going to really see him even in September, but I want to see Corey Lee then every day. Chucky Robinson, I love how he doesn't, he goes up there without batting gloves, but Chucky Robinson should really only be catching maybe once a week. All right, Andrew Vaughn at first base. I know some might prefer to see the newly acquired Miguel Vargas play there, especially after he dropped a clear, easy fly ball yesterday. But Vargas can play left field, and even if he drops a ball, this team isn't going anywhere, and it's a double. Again, if it gets over his head, it's a double. Okay. They're not going anywhere right now. But it is looking apparent that Vaughn is going to be nothing more than a replacement player. He's not going to live up to that hype of being a top 5 pick and being this, just crazy raker. He's going to be a 240 hitter. He's probably going to hit 20, 25 home runs a year. And at first base, that's probably the only place where you could be like, okay, replacement level is acceptable. And he still provides power with 13 home runs. And he's still 26. I want to go with a platoon here at second base with Lenyn Sosa and Nicky Lopez. I know there's some people that are like, why is Nicky Lopez even still playing? Well, that's because I don't really think the White Sox have a great option. Lenyn Sosa is who he is. He's failed to impress during his big league stints. He's been demoted twice. He struggled in April. Then he showed he could hit in June, but he can't drive the ball. He's not exactly a power hitter. He only has 4 home runs. And now, granted, he's 24, but I think his career is Nicky Lopez. And maybe you want to see, could he be a cheaper option to play there? But it's Nicky Lopez. And we know what Nicky Lopez can do. And that's why I think you just still platoon him. But they're playing him at short, which doesn't make any sense to me. Brooks Baldwin should be the everyday shortstop right now. He did get off to a rough start, 2 for 20 start, but he flashed some potential in last weekend's series against the Seattle Mariners when he was just ripping doubles to left or to right. And that was encouraging to see. And he's hit well at every level of the minors that he's been at. And I know there's just people that are like, why isn't top prospect Colson Montgomery up now? And I think he's going to get the chance to compete for the starting job in spring training, but he's struggling to hit at AAA still. I mean, he's still hitting under, I believe, 230, 220. He's struggling to hit velocity. And you already got that problem with Miguel Vargas. So let's just take it one step at a time with high potential prospects here. And, I've even heard the suggestion is, even though hitting's hard, trying to catch up with velocity might need some more at-bats in the minors because he just hasn't had a lot of the at-bats in the minors. Now, I'm going to contradict myself in a second, but with Brian Ramos, but just really quick too, it can't hurt to see if Baldwin can cover shortstop until either Montgomery's ready, or if Montgomery turns out to be nothing more than Paul DeYoung, you might at least have a better hitting shortstop in Baldwin. And, some people are even saying they don't even think Colson Montgomery is going to be a long-term answer at shortstop. All right, third base. I want to see Brian Ramos here. I don't want to see Nick Senzel. Nick Senzel is 29 years old. He's a failed top 100 prospect. And while he may be, one man's trash and another man's treasure, as we've seen, and he's had some decent at-bats, I don't think he's going to develop or ever realize that immense potential he had when he was drafted in 2017. Granted, there is somebody in this organization that is just obsessed with the MLB pipelines top 100 prospect list in 2017. Because if you go and look at it, the White Sox have a lot of players, or have had a lot of players on that list. And they tend to be getting guys that are the ones that don't turn out. But Ramos, again, he's 22. He's the Sox fourth-ranked prospect. He showed promise during that brief call-up, but he wasn't given a chance to see if he could adjust back once baseball adjusted him. Once baseball came for him, they sent him right down to AAA. I would like to see, can he come back up? Can he hit now that, the book is on him? Has he made the adjustments? And I get it, he's not hitting great at AAA. I believe he's only hitting like 240. But there's still some potential. And we should see, can he be the everyday third baseman next year? Because the Sox are not bringing back Yohan Moncada. And they shouldn't even bring him back at all. Stop with the updates about his health. Let him rehab in Arizona all he wants. You should already announce, we are not picking up his option. We wish Yohan the best in his future endeavors. And while he is still technically under contract, he can still use the Arizona facility, but we're moving on. All right, left field, this is where Miguel Vargas should play. He was the headliner, acquired in the underwhelming trade package from the Los Angeles Dodgers in that 3-team deal that sent Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham to St. Louis and Kopech to the Dodgers. And St. Louis got 2 major league players and didn't have to give up a single prospect. We know Getz is high on Vargas, and he's been a monster hitter when he's at AAA. And what Getz is thinking is give him the at-bats, even though he did get a good runway with the Dodgers last year. But he came back, he failed, but this guy does rake, at least at AAA. He's got to show he can handle velocity at the big leagues. He's got to show that he can handle not being Lenyn Sosa. Lenyn Sosa can hit too in AAA. Got to see him produce. Luis Robert Jr., obviously no-brainer at center. Dominique Fletcher, in right, he should be the right fielder now every day. This was the guy that they gave the job to out of spring training, and then only gave him 3 weeks, and then demoted him. You could also flip Oscar. You could put Oscar Colas here, but it looks like, again, they want to see Dominic Fletcher. And they definitely should see if he can drive the ball, because that's where Colas failed. Colas was getting, showed that he could get on base, he could be more patient, but he could not hit with power. And, the Sox did give up a 21-year-old promising pitching prospect in Christian Minaya. So I think they owe it to themselves to see what can Fletcher do. And then at DH, let's platoon Andrew Benintendi and Gavin Sheets. Benintendi, I think John Triffin said in the broadcast yesterday that Achilles problem is still bothering him, and his defense is below average, but his contract demands that he still has to be on this team. So, let him DH. I know it's both 2 left-handed hitters, but, their defense that they give is below average. So it's more important to give Fletcher and Vargas at bats. So I would just go with that platoon right there. All right, well, July is officially over, and it went as bad as it could for the White Sox. Let's look at just how bad it went next on Locked On White Sox. All right, let's face it. Outside of when Garrett Crochet, Drew Thorpe, and Jonathan Cannon start, there's not much to see when the White Sox play. But hey, if you're still a diehard and you like to take in at least 1 game a season because the food is still great at the park, the fan community is still outstanding, and the other team still has some star players we're seeing, then use the Game Time app to get your tickets. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And the Cubs, they come to the South Side at the end of the week, at the end of next week. The Yankees are at the rate starting the following Monday. So some prime teams to check out with the crosstown rivalry and Aaron Judge and Juan Soto coming to town. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And the Game Time ticket coverage covers your purchase. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox can't lose today as they're off. They'll be back in action tomorrow to start a 3-game road series with the Minnesota Twins. First pitch tomorrow is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Thank you for staying with me this long. Shout out to all my everydayers. The YouTube community is great right now. The comments are outstanding, and everybody's having a respectful dialogue. That's a nice thing. For the people that watch on YouTube and notice, yes, I have made a couple changes to the background. The old school picture back there, that is my grandpa bartending back at the old family bar. My great grandpa owned a bar in Ringwood, Illinois, about almost 100 years ago. Closed down when my great grandpa retired. My grandpa claims that old school Cubs like Gabby Hartnett and all them, and the White Sox, they used to love to hunt in McHenry County, and they'd stop in and grab a drink. Then the other picture is my sister, my eldest sister Mary, who sadly passed away from cancer a few years ago. She loved baseball, big baseball family. She took me to a couple of games at Old Comiskey when she could drive. My dad would gave her the tickets, and she took me a couple times. Also took me to my first Wrigley Field game. So we have a huge connection, and I felt that I'd like to have her by my side because, just baseball was important to her. And it's one of the reasons why I still love the White Sox was that connection we had. And it's one of the reasons why I love baseball. All right. Well, let's never speak of this July again. And if you're in the camp of being the worst team ever, the Sox July has helped big time in the team getting there, as they are on pace to be just as bad as the 1962 New York Mets and the 2003 Detroit Tigers. How bad was it? The Sox lost 80 games before reaching 30 wins, and they still haven't even won 30 games. This was supposed to be a pivotal month, at least for long term, when it came to building up the franchise long-term health. You had the draft and the trade deadline, and the Sox got a great pitching prospect in Hagen Smith in the draft, but they got really no one that projects to be a stud bat outside of their second-round pick. They got some solid prospects in the draft, as Elijah Evans talked about on yesterday's show, but they need studs, and they didn't get a lot of studs. And the trade deadline return was underwhelming. So the front office did not meet the moment, and the team on the field was even worse. The Sox went 3-22. Again, the second worst July for a team that has played minimum 20 games. They were outscored by 67 runs. The offense hit .212 with a .598 OPS. That's a .264 on-base percentage and a .334 slugging percentage, making up that .598 OPS. Martin Maldonado was the best hitter of anyone who had double-digit at-bats, and he was DFA'd. He was one of the worst hitters in all of baseball. But yet he had a decent July, and even the Sox were like, get up out of here. The team's ERA was .534 with a .149 whip. The team broke the single season and franchise record for most consecutive losses. And again, it's at 17 games and counting. They are 6 games away from tying the all-time losing streak. I believe it was the 1961 Phillies or the 62 Phillies that lost 23 games. They set a single season record this year that they broke the single season record for losses that they set this year. The team's been around since 1900 and never had a 14-game losing streak. They've had now 2 alone this season. And there's no Eric Fetty in the rotation to help be a stopper. Garrett Crochet is on an innings limit. Drew Thorpe wasn't very effective on the mound yesterday, and he's given up 14 earned runs in the last 2 outings. No need to panic, but slight eyebrow raise is all right to do. So it's not like you got these great stoppers in the rotation. And even Jonathan Cannon pitched outstanding during the Royals series, and it was not enough. So that's why things could continue to get worse in August. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. And thank you again for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss what the starting rotation should look like the rest of the season. Now, Chris Flexen should not start again, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion about Pedro Grifol, the everyday lineup going forward, and the terrible July the team had. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll talk to you tomorrow.